All right, man. Conleth,
Right.
welcome to the podcast.
Thanks very much for having me, Doc.
I'm not sure if you know about this, man, but in 10 seconds or less, what is it that you do?
I own a gym in Armagh. I'm an online coach, and I'm an avid reader and lover of all things coffee.
I was just going to finish that sentence for you. No, brilliant, man. I think we first met when we were having a few pints somewhere in the UK. It's kicked off a good relationship since then. Found you on Tinder a week later.
Yeah, it was Grindr, so it was. You're in the wrong one.
Shite. Yeah, that just tells you how long. Well, I've actually never had. I've never had the experience of using Tinder. Would you believe?
I thought you were going to say Grindr. I was going to say neither have I.
Brilliant. Okay, Conleth, we've been chatting a little bit before we came on live about some lessons during lockdown because we're both business owners. We've both been through some rough patches the last few months. We've both come out to the side of it, and we both learned a lot and taken a lot away that obviously is specific to us as business owners, but it's stuff that we've passed down to our clients. It's stuff that we've learned as a person. And I suppose, yeah, the first thing I do want to ask you is when March hit and you had to close the gym, what was going through your mind?
I'm allowed to curse.
Yes.
Yeah, obviously. Fuck this is what was going through my mind. I think like a lot of people, a lot of business owners, a lot of people in the fitness industry, it was a scrambling effort. A wee bit of denial initially that I had a few mentors that keep me right, and they were sort of telling me, listen, this is going to be big, and this is going to probably go on for months, which wasn't information that I wanted to hear when I was operating the gym, paying staff, just took on a new staff member 2 weeks before. And it was, I didn't really want to have to deal with it. I think in the rush of the actual lockdown being enforced in the UK and Ireland, we kind of rallied and we pushed hard for 2-3 weeks to transition our entire business from small group in-person, small group personal training to online. And that was a big overhaul. Like I probably done 80-90 hour weeks for the 3 weeks that we're doing that, and was really trying to be a perfectionist and roll out this new online model of training that we'd never done before, we'd never delivered, and find a way to transition 130 people from our existing offer to that, with everyone being felt comfortable and happy. And that process actually just involves me actually ringing people, because we wanted to present. We didn't want to say, this is what we're doing. We wanted feedback. We wanted to talk to the members and see what they were doing. But it involved me actually ringing every person. So for one of those weeks, for 4 days, I spent on the phone ringing all 130 people. And the average conversation, I went through my phone bill after, the average conversation was about 25-30 minutes. And I always point back to that. That was incredibly taxing on me. Didn't really realize it at the time. I sort of poured through the typical sort of gym owner, business owner thing, get on with it, never mind, bit of hard work, never hurt anyone. But after that initial sort of 3 weeks of lots of conversations, big rallying, I was saturated. Like, I was busted and just probably exhausted and thinking again, fuck this here, like what's actually going on, because we'd done a lot, like, well, me personally and the team would work their balls off for 3.5 years at this stage to build it up. And it was kind of like the foundations of everything that we built over the last sort of 3.5 years were just being shook from under us. And it was like, what the fuck's going to happen here? So that's probably the initial few weeks. I suppose I'm actually keen to hear how you found it and what your initial gut reaction to the news was, and how did you navigate it?
Yeah, well, as you know, pretty similar, because we at the time we had the same mentor, and it was reassuring to be in a network of like-minded gym owners, not just gym owners, but personal training gym owners, not commercial gym. There's a big difference, but nobody knew what was going on. I think people were scrambling everywhere and asking this question and that question, what the hell am I going to do, et cetera, et cetera. But I think this mode kind of ticked off me in the first few weeks. My wife is a nurse, and she was the one that gave me the dose of reality first. She was like, Dave, we're going into lockdown, like it's going to happen. And I, as you said at the start, there was a bit of denial there. I think it was the exact same. I was like, nah, hardly, you know. But I think that following Monday, we met with the staff. We're like, look, lads, we need to put a plan in place because we're probably going to lockdown. We need to be ready for it. If it does or does not happen, we're going to be ready for it either way. And that's where it started. And we didn't really stop after that because things snowballed. Like a week later, I think we were actually in lockdown. But we had told everyone, I think 6 or 7 days before that, before lockdown actually came, that we were fully ready, we were fully prepared for this, just to give our clients some reassurance, because we knew that people were going to have questions. We knew that our clients that are with us really, really care for the gym and it does a lot for them. And we're like, we want to keep that going. There was no doubt in my mind that we were just going to close and shut, and that was it. Like, no way. So we got Zoom ready. We made a choice where we're like, we'll try some of them out. And it just so happened that the two lads that were running a lot of the Zoom sessions and myself, we all ran them from our home houses because it just worked. And like you did, we had 3 of us contacting clients. We rang every single client as well. And there was no let up. Like, it was just go. And I was actually, I think the 3 of us, was myself, Robbie and Oisin at the time, 3 staff. The 3 of us ended up nearly working more because we had to be online and Zoom every single day, because we had quizzes, we had breakfast with the boys chats, we had Zoom consults with clients, we had the Zoom workouts, we had custom programs to do. So that there was a ton of admin work. And when you hadn't done a lot of it before, we have done online coaching for the last 5 years, but not like delivering live Zooms. It just took us a while to get ready, to get going with it all. But I think I worked more than I have for I don't know how many weeks straight, just because I had to do all the uploading and all the editing in the background, and our website was slow as fuck. So it took forever to get all those videos uploaded for people to play it back and whatnot. But like, at the time, it was super stressful. And it's only now when I'm looking back, like, I was just in kind of survival mode. Let's just get it done. And it took a lot out of me, man. Burnt the fuck out of me, if I'm honest.
It was a bit like adrenaline. I think that was somebody described. I was talking to another business owner. They weren't in the fitness industry, but they were sort of saying something similar, that it was kind of like an adrenaline response. And you get this surge, and it's like, right, this is what needs done, and everyone bunker down. Like, it was always the initial approach, was the bunker down together and let's everyone get on with it. And we did that. I don't know, you might have had a similar experience after. I think it was 3.5 weeks. Now, we were doing consistent weekly check-ins with all of the members. I wanted to keep a personal element to the gym, so we did those as phone check-ins just to try and maintain that personal touch. And they quickly became another pressure for me. And I think, as you said, you do a lot of stuff because you're not sure. It's a completely new model. You're not really sure what's going to work, so you do everything and hope that some form of shit sticks to the wall. Like, you just fire everything at it and hope that something sticks. So we split the members up between the 3 coaches, and then it got to about 3 weeks in, and I had a conversation with the accountant, and he had mentioned about furlough. My big concern was not having to let staff members go. It was just hired a coach. We had a really good team, and I just did not want to. Like, it's took me a long time to find a really strong team, and really, because I'm picky about who I expose my members to. And it was like and the accountant basically said, well, you can furlough yourself, you know. And it was like a light bulb going off in my head. It's like, well, actually, I have 30 people for check-ins. I'm going to give the 2 coaches 15 extra each. There's probably more than, like, that's enough work for the 2 of them. And I furloughed myself, and for the first time in 3.5 years, just took an almost complete step back from the business. The lads had a bit of autonomy. They were able to deliver the sessions well, and they were probably doing it better than I was because my head wasn't in the space to do it. So after about the 4-week mark, I just said, right, taking a step back from everything. And as you know, you've been following me on Instagram, I started deciding to do my entire garden, and which is not something that I'm not a gardener, but I decided initially I was going to put a lazy spa hot tub in. And I was informed by my old fella that I would need to put some form of patio down. I couldn't just sit on the grass. So I started digging up the grass with a long tail shovel, which took 3 days of and I was actually delighted to be digging in the garden instead of doing check-ins and doing Zoom workouts. I was like, this is class. It's sun shining. I don't have to go, which is such for context, I worked with my old fella for every summer for years. He's an electrician and hated being on building sites, hated manual labour. And here was me absolutely loving being in the sun with a long tail shovel and working on it. And it was like, this was the escape for me. So for a full 7 weeks, I was doing like 9, 10, 12-hour days working on the garden, being happy as a pig in shit. And it was just like we were chatting about before, it was like a bit of it forced me to take a step back from the business for a while. I got a garden out of it as well, which was a bonus. But I think that was a big thing for me. I was like, we're both very similar. And we were saying that before. It was probably why we got on well when we were drinking the pints in Birmingham last year. But it was that sort of thing. And we were both very type A, get on with it, like busy, have big aspirations to build our businesses to whatever level, and we like lofty goals. But part of the downfall of that is that we rarely take a step back, and we rarely sort of check in with ourselves. We rarely do the small things that we probably need to do consistently. And this was like well, there you go. Your fucking business doesn't really exist much anymore, and you're actually on furlough. You're not fucking needed, so you're not allowed to do anything in your business. Like, take a step back, go and sort yourself out, which was very uncomfortable. But I think, like as we were talking about, lots of cool stuff came from it.
Yeah, man, very similar. Like, I think the beauty of this is that it could be applied to anyone. Like, taking a step back does not mean that you have to own a business. Taking a step back can be a wake-up call for anyone. I was the exact same. I think near the end of the lockdown, I started to take a step back once I knew that, okay, the gym is going to reopen. Once I kind of accept that in my head that we're not going to not reopen, I was a bit more relaxed and I could see things a bit clearer. But taking a step back from me, and we talked about this before we went live as well, is that how much of my days and weeks am I spending towards doing shit that I probably don't need to do or don't like doing for little to no return. Because if you're someone like me, like, and you're just ingrained into doing stuff and doing work and just getting on with things, you end up just doing work for the sake of doing work, thinking that, oh, if I'm kept mentally busy or busy in general, that it's going to be better. But yeah, like you said, like, it gave me a permission to take a step back and reassess what a thing's going to be like going forward for me. Like, and I know everyone's thrown around that word lately, like, oh, what's normal going to be like? When is it going to be normal again? Or what's your new normal? And what's this kind of stuff? But one thing that stuck to me kind of during lockdown, and I know a few people were taking it out of context and throwing it around on Instagram like quotes do, but like, what are you not going to rush back to when, gym gets backed up, or life is kind of going back to open up a little bit more? And for me, it was just taking more time for myself in the evenings, taking more time for myself in the weekends, having cut off points at work times. And I know that's not applicable to everyone, but for me, it was massive, because I would just work. I'd work all day, every day, like, and I wouldn't think of anything of it. Like, I wouldn't think of myself doing 6-7 hours on a Sunday and wondering why family members are looking at me sideways. Like, I wouldn't think anything of it. Like, so setting boundaries for me was a big thing, and realizing that I need to take a step back so I can actually enjoy life more. And I think some people forget that as well. Like, and if you apply that to a fitness element, if you get some people that go off the deep end with fitness and they end up using the gym nearly too much as a crutch, they forget to enjoy life in the way that they can as a benefit from the gym, if that makes sense.
Yeah, I actually had a conversation with a fella who's my own coach, and him and myself are working on something in a similar vein. But it's this sort of thing around, we're not, like, I think when we're talking about this here, everyone has a load of things. Oh, well, these are business owners. You're chatting about business. It's not applicable to me. I've got a job here and it's not the same. You have all of this control over it. And one of the things that we were chatting about, and it's an exercise both of us have done, and both of us have done through different mentors or different coaches, but it's basically, okay, take 5 minutes and list out the top 5 things that you value most. And you can use like a value list, you can find it. But like, if it's family, if it's freedom, if it's work, if it's friendships, but like, if it's traveling, it doesn't matter what those 5 things are, but list those 3 to 5 things that you value most. And then the second thing is, okay, like, look at your last 3 weeks. Like, what have you spent the most time on in order of priorities, or in order of what you've spent the most time on to the least time on, and a different list of what do you spend your time. And if you're saying that your biggest priority is family, or maybe your relationship with your half, or your relationship with your children, and you've spent 80 hours a week at work and you've seen them for like 45 minutes in the evening, It's like, well, those two lists don't match. Like those two things, what you're saying you value and what you actually value are two different things, because you demonstrate what you value by your actions. And I think that disconnect is kind of what we're both talking about, that we sort of like to say that we're business owners, and the reason we are is because we value freedom and we don't have to answer to anyone. But yet we hamstring ourselves and spend 70 hours a week in the business and work our weekends because we feel like this is what is needed to be done. And it's that thing of start with the end in mind. Like, what do you want your life to look like? Like, what do you want? What do you value? What do you prioritize? And for me, coming out of lockdown, I was like, fuck, I have spent average 60 hours a week for the last 4 years building the gym business up, for it to return back to where it was after the first year in terms of member numbers when we returned out of lockdown. So that was like sort of 2.5 years of growth decimated in 4 months. And for me, that was like all right, okay, well, that was all in the name of growth, in the name of me building this business. And what have I got to show for it? Now I had lessons, I've grew. It's afforded me the ability to sort of live like a relatively comfortable life. But I don't have as much that, like, if I was in a normal salary job and getting overtime for those, I would have a hell of a lot more money. I think that's like, if you were doing 70, 80 hour weeks and doing overtime, you would have a hell of a lot more money. And it's kind of like, well, what am I actually getting? And I think for me, I had sort of went in the reverse way, where I went, right, okay, what way do I want my life set up? What things do I value? And okay, how can I set up my business? And how can I set up my week that what I say I value is what I actually value? That I'm setting aside time. I've got you'll see my Instagram videos of me taking my nephew for a walk, whatever. My sister lives around the corner from it, and like, I love spending time with family. And I would have always said that, but in the last sort of year and a half, 2 years, I wasn't actually prioritizing that with my time. I wasn't spending enough time with them. Whereas coming out of lockdown, it was like, right, let's bring the wee fella for a walk. Let's spend an extra half hour chatting to one of my parents, or let's spend that extra half hour chatting with my sister, just because I don't have to rush home to try and get the next bloody Facebook post up. Doesn't matter. But I actually think so. That's for me, that was huge. It was just it was a chance to just reset in terms of, what am I actually doing, what I want to do. But I know, like, and that's what we were chatting about before. It's kind of like, oh well, let's actually set this thing up the way I want it, and let's start living your days in a way that you actually get more out of it, whether that's your morning routine or whether that's sort of how you go about your day. It doesn't matter. And that's one of the things we've chatted about, like, your routine being massive for this year.
Yeah, probably the word I should have brought up earlier on is that what do I value? Take a step back for me was reassessing those things. I think a lot of people have similar values though. Like I would have been the same. I would have said family would have been the top of my list. Family, friends, relationships kind of comes under the one bracket for me. Travel is another massive one. And then a big one, which I classify as balance, would be like my own training is a big one, and my own personal growth. So like reading stuff that will give me different perspectives and help me move forward. And that doesn't mean that I'm reading a fucking goal setting book every week or something, like you're a robot. Like, and I believe that that's the way we should be for a long time when I was 21, 22 and naive. Like, but for me, those are kind of three main brackets of things that just serve me, like, and lockdown kind of gives you a chance to reassess things and what doesn't serve you. And even though the majority of lockdown, I wasn't thinking like that, I wasn't reassessing my life every fucking day of the week. A majority of it was sitting on the couch on Netflix and just trying to do some training when I couldn't be arsed. There was days and a few hours here and there where I was like, what's going to happen when the gym opens back up? Am I going to go back in working every day and night again? Even though I might physically be in the gym, I'm at home on the laptop. So for me, family, like you said though, like if you're saying you value family or relationships with family and or friends, are you actually doing that? And that dawned on me about 3 years back or 4 years back when I realized I spent the first 3 or 4 years of the gym and I kind of completely just didn't get on to any of my friends because I was so busy. And then I realized that I had to make the effort now, because why would they bother getting on to me to go and do something when I wouldn't be available to do it? It's just a natural progression that happens. So yeah, I suppose the stuff that we value, but I think routine, morning routine, nighttime routine, it gives you that headspace that you need to kind of keep the stuff you value, top of mind awareness every day, doesn't it? Like it keeps you on your own kind of personal goal path, if that makes sense. And it's something that you've shared a lot of over lockdown. And I think this is the main reason why I wanted to get you on, just to talk about a morning routine, daily routine, nighttime routine, whatever you want to classify it as. But what kind of routine did you end up developing as a knock-on effect of not being in work, we'll say?
I suppose the one thing, I don't know where I read it. I stole it from somewhere, and I can't claim it for myself. But I'd read something along the lines of create a morning routine that you actually love. And like I had always seen routines as a vehicle for me to be more productive and get more shit done. And when I was already working most of the hours of the day, it didn't seem like a priority to try and get more shit done. I was getting lots of shit done anyway. Whereas this, somebody like, I honestly don't. It's sort of that stage where I don't know if I read it. I don't know if it sort of landed on it myself, but that thing around your first 30 to 90 minutes of your day are actually really it's the only time you have complete and utter control over for most people, where you're not reacting to your email, you're not reacting to your phone, you're not reacting to like what you maybe need to do with the other half or what you need to do in the evenings, all the responsibilities sort of like that first half hour, 60 to 90 minutes when you wake up. That's the only time you have complete control over. In my eyes, I always find that like the morning, the my analogy for this is always, if you imagine how straight, like I always found that morning routine was the best thing to combat me being really stressed out. And that's really what it was born out of. It wasn't that I wanted to suddenly nail my routine. It was that I just was ridiculously fucking stressed out with the prospect of maybe the business not reopening or whatever it was in lockdown. And it was, for me, it was like a coping mechanism of, okay, well, like I'm waking up and diving into the laptop and I know I'm really stressed. So let's like take a little bit of a step back. And I started layering stuff on, doing different things, and some stuff stuck and some didn't. And I think that's one thing I sort of said. It was like, find a routine that you actually love. Like for you to start off, if you get up at 6:30 every morning, getting up at 6:15 and getting up at 6:30 is the same thing. Like it feels the same, but that might be enough time for you to have a cup of tea and to sit and read something that you're interested in and just take like 10 minutes to decompress. Like that's it. That's literally, I think that's just like, we obviously have a lot more control because we're working for ourselves. And I think that sometimes where there's a disconnect to think, oh, well, morning routine, that's just for people who have, like, I have to go to work, I have to try to commute in the morning. And for me, we have actually been doubling down with our clients massively as one of the big building blocks of what we do is nail your morning routine, like, but create one you love. So I would say take a step back and do something you love. Whether it's like, I'm obviously big coffee nerd. Take a step back, like have a nice coffee. I like reading, so I'll read stuff that I'm actually interested in, that I enjoy, not, as you say, like a goal-setting book that's going to suddenly like as an added pressure. Sitting down reading that, I found the fresh air made me feel good as well and not as stressed out. So I started including like walks in it. I found that when I was doing some form of breathing practice, which always to me sounded very fancy and something that hippies done, whereas like it was just literally just doing nasal breathing. So for the duration of my walk, I was just breathing through my nose. And then if like I'd sort of said, right, well, apparently cold showers are class, which was always the last one because they're not enjoyable at all. And for me, not being a morning person, I get into the shower at normal temperature, and for the last like 30 seconds, I just turn it like ice cold. And I found that when I got out of it, it was like, oh my, like, yes, like I actually felt class after. But what happened is like it started off as me reading something I enjoy with a cup of coffee. And then it ended up, okay, well, I'm going to go for a walk. And when lockdown lifted, it was, I'm going for a walk, but I'm going to collect my nephew on the way, so I'm getting a little bit of family time whilst also getting my fresh air, whilst also getting my steps in. And that's really like I suppose it's all started like what I always like I'm rambling slightly, but the way I would say it is, if you imagine your stress being like a dial out of 10, that when you wake up when you're late, like when you sleep in for your alarm and you realize you're late for work and you wake up, it's like you're automatically at a 10, like you're rushing around all morning, you're immediately like absolutely stressed out, heart rate up, rushing about, firing on you, completely like just rushing about the place, firing out the door and bombing into work, and you're automatically a 10 out of 10. People just about sort of wake up normally a 7 out of 10, where they have just enough time to get dressed, to get a shower, to fire their breakfast into and run out the door. And it's like if any one of those things is delayed by like more than like 2 minutes, that's you screwed, you're late. And then that's why you're late. Whereas I had this thing of like, if I have complete control over that 30 minutes before, it doesn't matter. I'm not in a rush. And it I also was like, people don't send me stupid emails when I've had a decent morning. It's like they do, but like, whereas before I'd be like, that fucking arsehole, like whatever it is. If I've had a 60 minutes where I've had a walk and I've chilled out and I've had some reading, like by the time I'm like, oh, fuck, it would really suck if that was if that's how you were starting your day. Like I'm reading it going from like, all right, well, it sucks to be you, like, but like I'm not gonna let you fuck my day off. Like, if that makes sense. So that was always my thing. Create a routine that you love.
And I always talk about our clients that train at 6 a.m. and 7 a.m. or even 8 a.m. That it's such a good thing to start your day with. Like that's part of their routine. Now for our clients that train in the evening, there's caveats to this. Straight away, you're going to get somebody that's going to say to you, yeah, try having fucking 4 kids to get ready in the morning. What are you going to do then? And like, you know, and I've had that genuine chat with a few, most of our ladies like at that do have, the large majority of them do have to get the kids ready and get them out to school, etc. And some of the lads then they might change over shifts if work allows it to. But like usually the conversation comes back to, can you find that little bit of a window either before they wake or after they wake where you have that little bit of time for yourself? It mightn't be an hour. It might be 5 to 10 minutes, but it's 5 to 10 minutes of unstressed time where you can either get to walk or listen to the X podcast or have your cup of coffee. I think that I found over time, like telling people to do something 90 minutes or an hour, it really stresses people out straight off the bat. And I know I used to do that to myself. And I find that once we kind of lose sight of why we started doing that in the first place, that routine will eventually erode away. Because I know mine did the last 2 years, because I used to have a great morning routine. And mine just kind of completely went to nothing. And now my routine is just dictated by just getting up and going straight to the gym, whether I have to be there or not. Like it's just an automatic habit now of doing that. Like, and I am trying to slowly bring back in coffee, book. And that for me is enough, because I'm starting the day on my terms and what I want to do, not going straight onto my laptop and checking an email or waking up and clicking to Instagram straight off the bat, because those habits have come back because I've let things slip. And I think we're all human. And we go through cycles of this kind of stuff, but like starting the day in kind of someone else's world is the way I used to describe it. Like, so if you're reading an email, you're going on Instagram, you're going on Facebook, you're going on Snapchat, you're going onto the news, you hop in the car, you click on the news, you know, you're hearing all this stuff that's not related really to you directly. Like you're not getting that little bit of time for yourself. It puts you at the kind of high dial stress level to start off the day. So like, can you find areas where you can fit something in for you? If you do have kids screaming in the morning, like what way can you look at that either before or after? But I think then kind of like this is directly linked to if somebody job starts at 8 a.m. and they're here thinking, fuck that, I'm not getting up at 6. There's a bit of a reality that has to come with it too. Like if you're staying up till 12, 1 a.m., 11 p.m. on Netflix and on your phone, something's going to have to change it. Like, because how can you think that you're going to get up fresh at 6 a.m. or half 6 a.m. to get a half an hour extra for you before you leave for the day? How would you think that's going to happen if you're doing the dog at another end? Have you experienced that, like with clients? Have clients come back to say, stop talking shit?
I think because we start every one of our clients starts off with like an intro where they spend, like, we sit down for like half an hour for 45 minutes and we chat about, I like, people think we chat about like food and stuff, which is obviously an aspect of it, but I prefer to try and get a bit of a picture about what their lifestyle is like what does your day look like? Because I always explain, like, I always like give a window and say, well, this is my morning routine. And then I always caveat that with, I'm 27. I've got a dog. Like, I live on my own. I've got a business that I can dictate when and where I want to be there. But so obviously I can have a fucking 90-minute morning routine. Like that's me. I'm not advocating that for everyone. But what I'm saying for people is, listen, you're like, if you are waking up fucked off every morning for waking up 9 out of 10, 7, 8 out of 10 stressed out every single morning, it's like you're daft if you think that's not going to impact your relationships with like the people you work with and with your family. And I just bring it back to, listen, just find a way to enjoy your mornings. If that's a cup of tea and watching a video on fucking doing your eyebrows. It doesn't matter. Like, it's up to you what that is. And I think at that point where I say, listen, it's 5 minutes or 10, like whatever my thing is always, whatever time you get up at, 15 minutes earlier feels exactly the same. That's it. And that can be enough time for you to like walk away from the house 5 minutes, walk back and walk 5 minutes back in the fresh air with the dog. Like that's it. And I always say, like, that's it. 15 minutes, get a cup of coffee, do whatever you want with that. I don't care. Do the thing you think you'll love most. Because for us, even with any of the stuff we try and get people to change, it's enjoyment is kind of your insurance policy. That means it's going to last long. Like, you might be full of good ideas. Yeah, no, that sounded really good. I'm going to start an 80-minute morning routine because it'll be class. And it's kind of bringing it back to what we were talking about before. It's like, why are you doing it? Like, are you just doing it because you think you're supposed to do it? Because that's fucking load of shit. Like, are you doing it because me and Doc are talking about it? Like, that's not the reason to do it. The reason to do it would be that you think you would be in better form, or you think, like, one of the big things I talk to our female clients that have children about is a wee bit of martyr syndrome, where it's kind of, oh, well, I'm the one that has to get them out the door, and I have to get them their breakfast. And it's because a lot of the time the mums deal with so much and they have the responsibility nearly of the household on their shoulders of doing everything. Like, it's very reluctant to do something for you, because it's almost like sometimes when we're chatting with female clients, it's almost like, oh, well, I got to do that for that, because given the choice, most mums that will prioritize doing something for their child over doing something for themselves. And I always try and get them to think of it from the point of, well, if you imagine you're waking up stressed every morning, and 7 out of 10, even just a wee bit stressed every morning, how do you think you're going to interact with your kids that morning, the next morning, the following morning? If you've had your 5 or 10 minutes to have a cup of tea, like, you mightn't say you're resentful, you mightn't say you're going to be annoyed at your kids, but every person in the country has has had the wrath of a tired female in the morning. So it's one of those things where, like, whoever you are, taking time to make sure that you look after yourself and keep yourself a wee bit less stressed out, and give yourself a pocket of 5-10 minutes to just decompress and do whatever you want. You're actually going to be a nicer person to all those people around you. And if you're trying to say, oh, well, I don't have time because I have to do this for them or that for them or that for them, it's like, oh, but do you realize you're probably going to be resentful? You're just going to do that anyway, and you might get a little bit fucked off that you're doing it consistently for them. If you give yourself 10 minutes, you might actually love doing those things, and you might do it with a wee bit more spring in your step, and you might enjoy it more. Like, that's one of the things that we sort of double and say, it doesn't have to be. I like to try and do, I always, like yourself, we like to do things to extremes. We like to really push the training, really push the business, really push the morning routine, but we're not really advocating that for everyone else. We're just saying, oh, well, if we can do all of this, we've found these parts useful, this makes slot in well to give you a wee bit of what you're looking for.
Most people that have written books about morning routines, like I think I've read 2 or 3 of them myself. Have you heard of that book, The Morning Miracle? I think it's called.
I've heard of it.
It's about waking up at like 4 or 5 a.m. and doing this perfect 90-minute routine. And I'm just like, like, you know, how applicable, like, people need to realize that those books, and even like go onto YouTube, you type in morning routine or billionaires and all this kind of fancy stuff. People need to realize that those books are written by people that don't have to be in a physical place and time because they have their own business, like, and they can do that routine, and they're morning people, and there's all these other things in their favor, like. But I think the biggest key takeaway for me when I teach this to people, or even for myself, and it's even given me a bit of a kick now to kind of cop on with myself and get back into doing things a bit tighter, because I have found myself going on my phone straight away lately. I have found myself delaying 15 minutes for no good reason, just because I'm a bit lazy, like, because I stayed up too late the night before watching Netflix. You know, I do want to tighten up those things, because I'm a better person the next day. I'm more productive. I train better. Like, everything is fucking better. Like, so why wouldn't we do it? But above all that, the biggest thing that you're doing is that you're giving yourself time straight off the bat, the first thing in the morning or the first thing in the day for you. And that compounds over time. You have that compound effect. If you started reading a book or listen to a podcast or, I don't know, you said watching nails or some shit on YouTube, that's going to compound over time, like, and that adds up, you know?
Yeah, it's do something for you. It's do something that you love to do. Like, I'm a huge fan of Jordan Peterson. Love his stuff. His book 12 Rules for Life was like my top 3 all-time favorite books. I love it. I love his podcast. But he
What was his
talks.
first rule? What was his first rule?
Stand up straight with your shoulders back. Tell you, for a man with slouch posture, like I think one of the things that he talks about, he actually talks about it from a relationship standpoint of couple, because he's a clinical psychologist by training, and he done a lot of sort of couples counselling. And one of the things he talks about is like your life's made up of a lots of like small things that you do consistently, whether that's how you wake up, whether that's how you go to work, like your commute, how you come home, how you eat dinner. Like you do those things every day, but like if you're doing something for 15 minutes like every day, that is like sort of 2.5 hours a week. That is like whatever, like say 130 hours a week. So it's like fucking three work weeks of you like coming home, like whatever it is. If it's something's 15 minutes, I say like in his analogy that he talks about is like maybe you don't like the way your partner greets you when you come back from work, and that's like 15 minutes. That's the window where that impacts you every day, and maybe that's what say that's like 2 full work weeks of how your partner greets you, and you kind of aren't amazingly happy about it. It's like, well, like that's your life. Like those, like you think that your life's like all this flashing, big, massive, like amazing things, or these big, amazing high moments. It's like it's not. It's these compounding things. How you get out of bed, how you like say goodnight to the person you love, like how you interact with people. He sort of says like you owe it to yourself to sort out as many of those wee small things as possible. Like if you're not a fan of how your partner greets you when you come home, like maybe they just don't move off the sofa and you come in the door and you're kind of like, I fucking wish they would acknowledge me. And it's like, then have the conversation, because the opportunity for that is that 15 minutes every day for the rest of your life together, you're actually happy with that, as opposed to you being fucked off. It's like, or if you're not, like if you're waking up kind of stressed out every morning, and it affects you for the first 30 minutes you're awake every day, like that's like 170 hours like a year of you being fucked off about how you've woken up. Like when you think about it, that's mad. Like that's a lot of time for you to be fucked off every single year. And if that's for 10 years, like 1700, like that's mad. Like that's a crazy amount of time for you to be fucked off for something so small, when the fix might include you spending a few weeks trying to get it dialed in. But the opportunity of that is, oh, well, I actually wake up in better form. And that's, like you said it before, that it kind of helps you sort of prioritize the things that you value. Like when you have a good morning routine, you're not as reactive to what happens the rest of the day. Like I know when I've had a good morning, the first thing that's generally on my mind that day is I must reach out to them. I must actually drop that person a message. I must, like, I'm finding probably like I would be a much better, like, not that I've set the bar very high initially, but I'm probably a better like son, brother, uncle, friend, all of those sort of facets of like that make up who I am. I'll be better at those because I'm actually reaching out. And like, for if someone comes out, like one of the small things that I'll try and do a few mornings a week, I don't do it every day, is try and just think of somebody that has popped in. Like if somebody pops into my head, I'll just reach out to them and drop them a voice note. And it's just, how you getting on? How's things going? You just popped into my head. The amount of unbelievable conversations that have came out of that in the last 3 months is amazing. And I'm still like, even though that's amazing, I'm still only doing like once or twice a week. But like I should probably be doing that every day. And it's that thing of like the stuff that'll make you like enjoy and get more out of life. It's like, just do that. Like nobody's telling you what to do. It's like, find shit you love to do that makes you feel good, that makes the fucking people around you feel good, and then do that shit consistently. Nobody's telling you what to do. And I think that's where when we talk about this from business owners or personal trainers, they're very like, it's almost seen idealistic. Like, look at your man there. Oh, fuck, sure, I wish I had time to sit and read, have a cup of coffee and read in the morning, sure, to get the children out of school. It's like, that's like, we're not saying that's what you do. We're just saying, listen, find a morning you fucking love. I don't think anyone could come back to you going, you're a fucking arsehole. Stop telling me to make a morning I love. I like my shit mornings. Like, it's so it's like, find something you love and do it consistently. Like.
One thing I actually forgot to mention as well is that lockdown has where I got the idea from someone, or I must have seen it, but I pick a day a week now where it's kind of like just a day for myself.
Right.
That's kind of it, like, because as I said, like if you're somebody who, let's just say somebody listening to this was a personal trainer and they had to be up at fucking between 4:30 and 5:30 to get to coaching in the gym for 6 a.m. Like, the reality of them doing a morning routine is it's just probably not there. Maybe they're commute to the gym, they might listen to a podcast, something for them. Of course, they'll find ways. We're good at finding ways to do things for ourselves. Like, but if you're somebody like that has a job that's super early, like, and you find it very, very hard to get into that routine, you might have a day or 2 days a week where you really set aside time for you just to put it towards yourself. Like, and all I do on these days, obviously, I can't really do it right now because of lockdown, but I spend an extra portion of stuff and time for me. So I might read a fucking book for longer. And usually what I did was when we weren't in lockdown, I'd go to a restaurant with that book by myself and just have a nice meal and have a nice coffee and read. And that, it's just a little bit of time for myself, but it meant a lot to me, like, because nice headspace after it, you're doing something for yourself, you just fucking feel good, like, and there's nothing. I think lads, if you're telling this to some lads, they'd laugh at you thinking, oh, it's not a manly thing to do, and you're using examples of females there, but we're talking to males and females. We're not. This is not just for females, like in terms of kids in the morning and stuff. Men are the same, but like, I think that if men just admit the fact that we need to do this shit and just do it, we're going to be better off mentally and physically, like,
Yeah, that's a big topic. That's fucking the whole thing on itself in terms of men not wanting. I think actually the more I sort of post about this sort of stuff and when I chat to different people, not that like a few people have sort of said like, "Geez, you don't hear many fellas chatting about that." Yeah. That's the first thing. You get the odd person asking if I'm gay. I'm like, I'm not. It's like that. I'm like laughing, going, "Geez, that's weird." The fact that I'm talking about that is sort of being like relayed with almost a feminine or I'm not insulted about it. I'm just like, no, it's not. I'm not. But like that's a strange observation. That
I've been asked as well.
The
same lad asked me, was I on OnlyFans?
You get it now and again, but I think that's just this sort of thing where, Jesus, if there's a fella talking about like, do you know what, you need to actually like take some time for yourself or do that there, or just talking in an open way. It's like right, it's your man there, like, and you're like, what? It's not a thing, and it is. We had that chat before, and we're talking about like myself and you have had pretty deep chats, like in general, and even just before we came on the podcast, like about actual real stuff. And I think that's the thing that I've chatted with a few people about. The people that I have, like a few of the people that I get on best with are people that I can have those conversations with, because like that's a real conversation. Like small talk, whether even when people talk about football, like I play football, like me, like play Gaelic, and like I don't particularly enjoy chatting that much about it. Like I'm kind of like, yeah, it's fine, it's fun, it's a bit of crack. I like playing it. I don't like sitting chatting about it for hours on end, and I get kind of bored when I'm chatting with something. Like I don't really do small talk. Like I prefer to find out, right, well, what are you about? Like, what do you do? All right, yeah, like, do you enjoy it? Do you love it? No. All right, well, what do you love? Like, and getting into that. And sometimes when you talk to other type of people, they get a wee bit like stiff back, because I'm like, what's your man at? Like, is it, like, why you asking me all these questions? It's just like, because I've zero time for real run-of-the-mill small talk. I want to actually have a conversation, and I just end up surrounding myself with people that I can have those conversations with, that I get something from. Because like Connor O'Neill, who is Know Yourself Nutrition, actually Know Yourself Performance now, he'd be one of my best friends. I literally came from his house. We had met for a takeaway coffee. Probably shouldn't say that. But
3 months ago.
3 months ago. 3 months ago, before the lockdown, we done that. But that's something that I fucking really value, because we'll have a conversation, and we started, and it was like we nearly had to have the excuse of, we're meeting to chat about business. And this was 3 or 4 years ago, because what the hell would two lads be meeting in a cafe for? Like, but if we said we're meeting about business, it was acceptable, because all right, okay. The fact of the matter is, most of the conversations like digress to where you're at, what you're like, what you want to do, what you don't want to do, like where your head's at with stuff. Like if you're, and me and him both have noticed that, and we say it all the time, like we called accountability club because initially it was a framework to keep each other accountable. It's never been that. It's more a chance to, let's fucking like actually just chat with somebody here and actually tell them where I'm at and what I'm doing. And we have said, like, that's been in the diary every week for the last 3 years, every Wednesday morning. And the weeks we don't do it, which in 3 years we've probably missed maybe 12 or 15, like total. Like that's probably how many we've missed. But we always say, it's like every time we miss one, we're like, oh fuck, I actually desperately need this next week. Like, it's a wee miniature counselling session. It's a laugh, like, because we both have a bit of a chat about where we're at, what's going well, what's not. You come away from it. And initially, I was like, be driving to Belfast, which is half an hour for me to meet Connor because he was living there, to go for a coffee. And my mum was like, what are you driving to Belfast for a coffee? I was like, oh, we're meeting about business, we're meeting about this and stuff. And then eventually, like, she had copped on it. That's like, oh, you just talk about business. I'm like, I'm chat about everything. Like, and then she would literally prompt me, like, if I'm stressed out and I'm being a fucking pishmar and being just an awful person to be around, she's like, would you ever fuck off to Belfast and go and meet Connor there, because I can't bedeal me. You normally come home in far better form. And it's that thing of, like, lads actually chatting in an open way to be like, yeah, where you at? What's the crack? But it's a cultural thing. It's an Irish thing. It's not a very acceptable thing. You'll get the DMs asking about your OnlyFans. But there's a lot on the table if you're actually willing to do it.
Like, yeah, man. I think if we probe this bear anymore, we're going to go off in another rabbit hole that will have this turn into a 3-hour podcast, I think. Food for thought for the future. But is there anything else, Conor, do you want to add in terms of like overall lessons from lockdown, or do you think you've covered everything there?
No, I think we've pretty much covered everything. I just sort of said, like, the main takeaway I've been taken from lockdown is I'm telling my clients, telling people, like, the only thing I've really taken from it is really, like, what you actually value, and start trying to make your actions reflect what you say you value. And that's, like, everything else after that is secondary. It's nice. It's a nice thing, but that's probably the main thing. What about you? Just to ask you the same question.
What's the question?
What did you take away? What are your, like, from lockdown? What's the big thing? Like, what's the thing that sticks in your head? Like,
stop
stop
doing stuff that doesn't serve me. Simple.
Like,
and that, like, even sport has been nearly more of a negative for me the last year than it has been a positive, and that's it's probably pretty crazy for me to say that, but it's just the way it's been. I just think I've had a lot going on, trying to juggle too much shit, and then when certain things, when I'm playing a sport I love so much and I've grown up my whole life playing it, you just want it to go right. And when things don't go right and things don't follow your way, like, it nearly becomes a negative. And when things like that become a negative for me, I have to cut them. Like, I have to cut things and reassess before I can think about going back into them again, if that makes sense. Yeah, pretty weird one, but that's just the way it's been for me. Like, but it comes back to that overall principle. Like, I'm trying to avoid or stop doing stuff that doesn't serve me. Like, why am I doing extra hours at work, for example, when I don't need to do them? There's always going to be an endless amount of work to do as a business owner, but I'm done with doing too much stuff extra that does not need to be done right now, and just kind of living life more, so to speak, which is kind of the overriding theme of what we just chatted about. Like, and yeah, like, one thing actually I forgot to ask you at the start is to fill us in a little bit about what you do. I kind of skipped past that part. You said you were a gym owner, but we never really touched on what and where. If you wanted to fill in, guys, where the gym is, what do you do, and where can we find out more about it?
Yeah, we're Kaizen Personal Training Gym. Kaizen, the philosophy of continuous and gradual improvement. So that's kind of all of what we're about. We're based in between Armagh and Antrim, and the bottom corner of Lough Neagh. Yeah, that's probably the gym's great, small group personal training gym, and we're just kind of the gym for the people that hate gyms. That's our thing. Like, and then myself, I have actually been getting more into online coaching, as we were just chatting before. So I do just sort of in the last few months, online coaching, typically with business owners, to try and get them getting their life in a wee bit more of a balance of what they actually want to have, so their training and their business and what they're spending their time on is actually aligned. Just all that sort of stuff that we were talking about, their morning routines, and trying to find a way so that they can actually enjoy running their business, because it's been a big revelation to me this year coming out of lockdown that there's a way to have your cake and eat it too. And that's it. Conleth_Kaizen on Instagram, and if you like my stuff, you'll watch videos of me drinking coffee, going for walks in the morning, and talking shit. That's pretty much it.
And doing bicep curls.
I'm doing bicep curls, unending amount of bicep curls. If anyone watches my thing, you'll see I'm on a very upper body dominant split at the moment, and there is, I think, bicep curls are the new squats. They're very functional, so they are.
Yeah, I agree. Alrighty. Thank you very much, buddy, for coming on. And no doubt I'll have you back on in the future. And have a nice evening.
Thanks very much for having me.
I'll chat to you soon.